When Charles Manson was born to a 15 to 16-year-old girl named Kathleen Maddox, and an unknown father. And throughout his childhood, his mother was arrested frequently for armed robbery as well as a few different other crimes, which had led him to live with his aunt and uncle in West Virginia. Growing up for him was fairly difficult. While in and out of boarding school, a lot of things had happened between him and his mother, including accusations of things that she would do to him. According to the Manson family, as an infant, he was traded in for a pitcher of beer by his own mother, and from what I have read, she seemed in and out of his childhood as well as prison. Around age 9, he spent a lot of time in juvenile reformatories or in prison for crimes like petty larceny, armed robbery, burglary, and auto theft. After he was released from prison, he attracted a small but devoted group of followers from the city's bohemian youth culture. But by 1968, he had become a religious cult leader drawn from science fiction, as well as the occult and fringe psychology. He preached about an apocalyptic race war that would devastate the US and leave the family in a position of dominant power. During his school experiences, he claimed he was sexually assaulted, raped, and beat for 3 years he had spent there. At 16, he had broke out of school with 2 other boys and stole a vehicle and traveled across state lines. After his older federal crime of driving a stolen car across state lines, he was sent to Washington, D.C.'s National Training School for Boys. On arrival, he was given an aptitude test which showed he was illiterate but showed an above-average IQ of 109, though his caseworker deemed him aggressively antisocial. While being extremely antisocial, he committed a variety of crimes, came from a broken home, etc. He had showed signs of even being a sadist at a young age, and there's things going around saying that he had raped a young boy at the age of 17 while in reformatory school with a razor held to his neck. The main premise of the act he focused on was murder and the conspiracy to murder. He was an American killer and cult leader who had his followers carry out several murders in the late 1960s. Charles Manson was basically a mix of both an organized yet disorganized killer. His personal characteristics and crime scenes showed that he was both an organized and disorganized offender. He didn't have many specific crime patterns, but based on the people he and his cult family killed, they were all people residing in Hollywood, usually someone with a fairly recognizable background or even famous. An example being Sharon Tate. One of his most famous killings, she was a popular actress and model from the 60s who had small roles in television, appearing as an extra in most films and advertisements. There's even articles claiming that she attempted to try out for the lead role in the supposed cursed film Rosemary's Baby, but was inevitably not cast, and made appearances on the set instead. His main motive, Manson would target people he knew directly or indirectly associated with. They were all attacked within their residences, and the only victim known to still be alive from him is Bernard Crowe, who was shot but survived. After the La Bianca murders were followed, and then left with a period of inactivity, Manson and some of his followers were arrested at Barker Ranch in Death Valley on suspicion of automobile theft. He and the other 4 murderers were sentenced to death, but following the abolition of capital punishment in California back in 1972, their sentences were left to be carried out with life in prison. From my personal standpoint, I believe that it's a mix, that serial killers are born or are in their nature and circumstances of upbringings. Some people are exposed to traumatic events in their childhood, come from broken homes and abusive homes, etc., and develop traits that soon devolve into more violent behaviors, then more likely than not spread to killings. Although in some circumstances, children are born with mental illnesses and they develop over time, and despite coming from fairly good families and home lives, they still develop those recognizable traits that make them who they become later on in the future.
Is Charlie Manson crazy?
Well, whatever that means. Sure, he's crazy as mad as a hatter. What difference does it make? You know, a long time ago, being crazy meant something. Nowadays, everybody's crazy.